What do you think are the top three crucial metrics you need to know to maximize accounts payable performance? Best practices for accounts payable management include three must know metrics that are key for maximizing accounts payable performance. While there are literally hundreds of metrics you can measure around the accounts payable process, we've got the three basic ones to get you started. Now, to be honest, each of the primary metrics has several additional KPIs that you might want to include in order to run a best practice accounts payable operation. Stick around until the end when we show how the last set of metrics can be used to improve accounts payable productivity and drive best practice performance from your accounts payable and payment options. It's really pretty simple. Hey guys, I'm Mary Schaefer, founder of AP Now, your one-stop shopping for cutting-edge business intelligence if you work in, manage, or have responsibility for the accounts payable and or payment function. Alrighty, so let's turn our attention to the basic accounts payable function of processing invoices. I'm pretty sure I'll have a different opinion on at least one of them as to what's important, but I'm getting ahead of myself and I'll get to that. So your must-know metric number one, as I call it, has to do with how many invoices does your team process in a week, a month, or a year. Okay, you need to understand this because it gives you an understanding of your department and the work that it is that produces. Now, clearly, all invoices are not created equal. So, for example, an invoice for a magazine subscription that is basically one line, and an invoice for 300 different items ordered in a hospital pharmacy are going to be not equal. So, because of this reason, and like as I said, all invoices are not created equal. Some count the number of line items processed because they feel that's more meaningful and gives a better understanding about the work that is produced in the accounts payable space. Now, if you don't have that great disparity between invoices, then this may be the line items may not be important in your organization. But at a minimum, you should know how many invoices are processed by your team, as I say, in a week, a month, or a year. Now, for some of you, the average number will be the same every month, more or less, give or take a few. But in others where there's seasonal activity, you may need to adjust for that. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, once you have this, that's great. And it would be great. We'd only need that number if they all flowed through the process without a hitch. But as you know, when you go and you do your three-way match, sometimes it doesn't go so smoothly. So now we come up to accounts payable must know metric number two, if you will. And this is the number of exception invoices per month or the number of discrepant invoices per month. Okay. So while knowing how many invoices you have is a good start, it doesn't really give you an idea of how your people are spending their time if you have more than the occasional discrepancies. And once you start measuring your discrepancies or your exception items and figuring out why you're getting them, then you'll be better situated to identify some of the root causes that are creating most of the discrepancies. And once you have that information, then you will be able to hopefully go and fix it. Once you know why the problem is happening, then you can go and fix it, or at least try and fix it. And hopefully that issue will get a little bit better. Along the same lines, it's not exception items. It's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, if you will. You should also, if you get early payment discounts, you should know how many you earned last month. So you should know the number and the dollar amount. And while you're at it, you want to figure out not only how many early payment discounts you earned, but how many you lost and the dollar amount. And the reason why it's so important to figure this out is, number one, somebody else is going to figure it out and share it at a meeting, and you want to be prepared. But also, it might sound terrible to say, oh, you lost 100 early payment discounts last month. What a terrible job the accounts payable department is doing. But if it turns out all those early payment discounts that you lost, they were $1 or $2, and the net result was the company lost $150, that's a lot different than if the company lost one $15,000 early payment discount on one invoice. So you want to be able to, put things in context and be able to discuss these numbers with some intelligence, and that will help. Of course, if you don't get offered early payment discounts, then it's a moot point, and you don't have to worry about that at all. Alrighty. Before we get to our third set of metrics and what you can do with that data, I'd like to share with you that we address the bigger accounts payable and payment issues with new broadcasts on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and on Saturdays we occasionally have some Wordle fun. We also post some YouTube shorts on some intervening days, if you will. So please check out our library of over 300 videos. All right, so now let's talk about must-know metric number 3 for the accounts payable department. And this is becoming increasingly important, by the way, as we work our way through getting away from paper checks. So what do you need to know? First of all, you should know what is the total number of payments that you made. And then, so, that let's just say that was 100. I'm sure it's more, but let's just say it was 100. Then you need to take that 100 and you need to break it down. You need to know how many were checks, how many were ACH, how many were wire, and maybe how many were P-card, if that's appropriate. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just the checks, the ACH, and the wire. And you might even want to break the ACH down further into same day and next day ACH. And the reason for this is if you are trying to move some wire activity to ACH, that information will be helpful. You also might want to, remember I told you I was going to tell you how you can use this information for process improvements. You want to go back and you want to look at your check payments. And of those check payments, you want to kind of stratify the file and figure out how many checks did we issue for under $100? How many did we issue for under $500? How many did we issue for under $1,000? You may be horrified when you see these numbers. So, for example, using my hypothetical example of you made 100 payments, you may find that 40 of them were for under $100. Okay, that's a tremendous amount of people power, if you will, or effort putting on for small dollar expenditures. And this data will become very helpful if you're trying to move some of your payments to P cards, because you can use this to identify those situations where a card might have helped, and you can also, get a feel for it. Now, let's say you went and you did this. I doubt this would happen, but let's say you have a very successful P card program, then it might happen. And then you might find out, well, we made 3 payments for under $100. Well, then maybe we don't have more activity to move there. Okay, so the numbers, again, will put things in context for you and help you focus where you want to have your process improvement efforts, if you will. Now, one moment. You think I'm finished, but I'm not. There's one metric that many of you might be thinking, why didn't she include that? I would have included that. And the reason I didn't include it is because, first of all, I hate it, and I feel it's a mistake to focus on it. And what is it? Some of you may realize that it's the cost to process an invoice, which I know was probably at the top of your list of what are the 3 metrics we should have. And I don't think it's a meaningful metric for a variety of reasons. And I did a whole separate video on that, which I'll link to in the description below, and I'll probably have it show up on the screen at the end, so you can watch it if you disagree with me, and then I would love to hear from you, either in the comments or you can write me individually if you agree with me or you disagree with me. Okay, this session is part of our AP Best Practices playlist, which you can also watch using a link that will appear momentarily on your YouTube screen and is in the show notes below. As always, we appreciate your thumbs up, your comments, your shares, and your subscribes.